Before we begin, if you enjoy in-depth discussions on world affairs, psychology, history, and leadership, please subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with your friends. Every subscription, like, and share helps this channel reach more people and supports thoughtful conversations on important global issues. Now, let's begin. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to you all. Today, we are going to place a horrific scene under our analytical microscope, a bleak testament to how power, once stripped of human dignity, manifests in its most grotesque and hypocritical forms within the arena of international politics. Since the outbreak of the war in February 2022, the total number of casualties on both sides of the Russia-Ukraine conflict has already crossed a staggering 2 million. Even as unspeakable war crimes and anti-human massacres are being perpetrated in this civilized 21st century, we on the other side of the globe live our daily lives in tranquil complacency, smiling and carrying on as if nothing were amiss. However, this nightmare is not confined to distant lands. On the other side of the planet, South Korea, once a proud, advanced democracy, is systematically modeling itself after Venezuela. Barbaric acts and human rights, violations that are unacceptable in a civilized world, are unfolding as we speak. Tragically, the international press remains dead silent. The current ultra-left regime now finds its very political legitimacy heavily questioned, even by the United States, traditionally viewed as the bastion of democracy due to simmering allegations surrounding election transparency. The behavior exhibited by the leader of this regime represents the very pinnacle of hypocrisy and autocracy. While donning a mask of public benevolence, he is driven entirely by a pathological desire to dominate, dissecting and controlling every single aspect of his citizens' daily lives. He thrusts his blade into the private sphere, dictating which specific coffee not to drink, and commanding corporations to invest in designated regions, all while orchestrating deceptive publicity, stunts like personally managing the production of low-cost sanitary pads, to package himself as a benevolent monarch. Beneath this mask of hypocrisy, however, lie hidden, cruel talons. To sever the lifelines of the media daring to expose election doubts, he suffocates them through aggressive advertising suppression. He inflicts punitive atrocities on foreign enterprises, and he even mobilizes state apparatuses to criminally prosecute critics, speaking out from abroad, slamming his fist on the desk, while barking orders at his subordinates like hunting dogs. He weaponizes laws and institutions, decimating the lives of the populace, to execute a reign of razor-sharp terror. The regime's anti-human nature reaches its zenith when it shackles religious leaders whose domains ought to remain sacred sanctuaries, and crushes the most minor acts of innocent citizens under the heavy combat boots of public authority. While handing down draconian punishments to political rivals, he grants total immunity to his supporters, creating a striking double standard. Within this fortress of hypocrisy, his ego falls into the illusion that he stands at the absolute center of the world. However, the moment this stage of hypocrisy expands to the cold reality of the international community, the fraudulent Tower of Babel he built begins to crumble. Inside the vast halls of international summits, where competing national interests and global scrutiny prevail, domestic power means little. No one grants automatic respect, and no one accepts authority without credibility. There he is forced to confront the widening gap between the image he created and the reality perceived by the outside world. This is presented not merely as a diplomatic failure. It is the psychological collapse of an ego intoxicated by power, the erosion of trust and reputation in international politics, and from the perspective of Eastern philosophy, the inevitable collision between illusion and reality. The blind king behind the curtain. Why does he never recognize the truth? Perhaps the most fascinating and the most tragic question is this: why does such a leader rarely realize what is happening? Why does he fail to understand why? He has become increasingly isolated on the world stage. Why does he believe that the problem always lies with everyone else? History offers a sobering answer. In many cases, he never realizes it at all. Not while he remains in power. Sometimes not even at the end of his life. This is not simply a political phenomenon. It is the convergence of three powerful forces, studied by international politics, criminal psychology, and philosophical traditions alike. Together they create what might be called the three great veils that conceal reality from those intoxicated by power. The three great veils that prevent a leader from seeing the truth. The first veil, the curtain created by loyal advisors. The first obstacle is political rather than psychological. Every ruler surrounded by power is also surrounded by people, whose own status depends upon preserving that power. Such advisors often become guardians not of truth, but of comfort. They carefully filter information before it reaches the leader. Bad news is softened. Failures are reframed as strategic victories. Public criticism becomes evidence of envy, even when undeniable images circulate, showing the leader isolated at an international summit. Official reports may present an entirely different story. Upon returning home, the leader hears something like this. Sir, the summit was a tremendous diplomatic success. Although the negotiations were conducted quietly behind the scenes, our nation achieved significant strategic gains. The distance maintained by certain Western leaders simply reflects their concern over our nation's growing influence. Every uncomfortable fact is transformed into reassuring praise. Every warning becomes encouragement. Gradually, the leader stops receiving reality itself. Instead, he consumes a carefully manufactured version of reality, produced within his own political circle. One might even describe it as a system of internally generated propaganda, a form of fake news directed not at the public, but at the leader himself. The irony is profound. A person who appears to possess unlimited information may actually know less about reality than ordinary citizens. The higher one climbs in a hierarchy of power, the easier it becomes to mistake carefully curated illusion for objective truth. And so the first veil descends. It is not woven from ignorance. It is woven from loyalty, fear, ambition, and self-interest. The leader becomes isolated not only from other nations, but also from the truth spoken by those closest to him. Once this curtain is fully closed, genuine self-correction becomes extraordinarily difficult. For a leader who never hears honest criticism, gradually loses the ability to recognize it, even when the entire world is speaking.